As summer comes to a close here shortly, a little piece of news escaped me. And I meant to bring it up in an earlier podcast when I found out about it in June. But like I said, it slipped past by me in the throes of summer. But apparently, and for those of you who are in the know about whiskey, maybe this is old news to you, and maybe for our guest, who I'll introduce here in just a little bit, maybe it's old news for him as well. But I thought I'd still get it in there before the summer was out. In June, apparently a distillery in New Hampshire made a new whiskey that's flavored with beaver anus secretions. Tamworth Distilling in New Hampshire releasing what they're calling a new limited edition. This was back in June, of a whiskey that's flavored with the beaver anus. Technically, beaver anal secretions. Here's the thing. You may raise your nose in disgust, but apparently you've already been tasting it. Beaver anus secretions. The whiskey is infused with castoreum, which is the oil that beavers have in their little sacs in their tails that they use to mark their territory. So, castoreum is a pretty common food additive, and because it's cheap, it's a cheap substitute for vanilla and strawberry and raspberry, and the FDA lets companies just list it as natural flavoring, yes, and not beaver anal secretions, because we might not be so inclined to try something with beaver anal secretions as we would to natural flavorings. We've all had something, ate something, drank something with natural flavorings. So you're probably eating it without even realizing it all these years. If you want to see what it does to whiskey, go to New Hampshire. They said, and I'm quoting here, it exudes a leathery raspberry taste and acts to fortify the whiskey flavors. Available for a limited amount of time back in June at a handful of stores. I personally am going to hold out for squirrel nutsack juices. I think is what I'm waiting on. Give me a whiskey infused with squirrel nutsack juices, and I'm in. Welcome to Whiskey Business, a podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey. Our guest bottle, our 65th bottle. Now I'm counting them down to 70 and eventually to 100 hands, Barry. Is Town Branch Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 80 proof, from Lexington, Kentucky. The Town Branch Distillery brought back bourbon distilling to Lexington for the first time since 1958. This product started to come out in 2012. Now, that's probably news to you and I, but to our guest, probably not so. He writes for the Ohio Tavern News. Max Eckenwiler, am I saying that right?
You're saying it exactly
Max
right.
Eckenwiler, who I met for the first time at the Woodford Reserve Manhattan competition a while back, also a Whiskey Business podcast, joins us tonight to share some whiskey and talk whiskey. And Eckenwiler is what? What is that?
German.
You
pretty much German.
German. How do you not know what you are?
They've been here a long time.
The Eckenwilers.
Yeah.
So,
I'm like fourth or fifth generation Eckenwiler.
But you're saying it with doubt, like you don't know.
Well, no, I know it's German.
You know it's German.
Yeah.
Okay. On both sides of the family.
Yep.
Just all the
Gratz on one side, Eckenwiler on the other.
What is on one side?
Gratz. Gratz. So that's about as German as it comes.
Yeah. Gratz.
I think they got that on the menu at Schmidt's.
Yes, exactly. You can get it at the Autobahn.
Gratz with
It was
gravy.
circling
That's
in
one
my
of-
head,
that's one of
and
the
I saw steam almost coming out of your headphones. Let me say it. Let me say it.
I got this one.
So, Eckenwiler, and do you come from a family of drinkers?
Actually, my parents, pretty much teetotalers.
Really?
we had 4 boys. I don't know how they didn't drink. But me and my brothers, we tipple it quite a bit. So it's just my dad was a basketball coach, teacher. My mom's a teacher. So they always were trying to set a good example.
So there wasn't any Eckenwiler family reunions where everybody,
Nope.
and excuse the stereotype, where the whole family's going, yeah, 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 yeah.
It's crazy.
No?
No, not
No.
at all. No lederhosen.
Just,
no.
just
Yeah.
fucking crickets.
Exactly. we'd have our
Holidays.
bland.
What about? All right,
food.
then what about the Gratz family?
And they were darn near Amish. So they were Mennonite. So there was nothing.
The
No
hell,
drinking
man?
from eat. I don't know.
So when were you
And
first?
then how did I get into this?
When were you first introduced to alcohol? Then, with such a pure, lineage and past.
Oh, like most kids, high schoolish, but probably a little bit before, but not really a big drinker or anything
What'd you
like
drink
that.
in high school? Was the first thing you
Oh,
had?
just beer.
Just beer.
Oh, actually, I think the first thing was a very delightful wine called Wild Irish Rose. Beautiful fortified.
Right there, right
Yeah.
next to the MD 2020.
Yes, exactly. It's
And
the-
the Annie
the
Green
Boone's Farm.
Springs and
Oh,
the
yeah.
Boone's
Yeah,
Farm.
right by.
Absolutely, yes.
can pick it up at the
what to
finest
choose, What to
stores.
choose? What to choose?
Yes, and going down into the inner city of Mansfield, Ohio, and just going to your finest establishments, going with your friend who had a beard at age 14, 15, be like, he's old enough.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, you guys.
Was
can
that one
have
of the Mennonite Amish kids?
it. No,
No?
that was away from them.
That was away.
Yeah.
Even when they went on their, what is it? When
Rumspringa.
say that again?
Rumspringa.
I can never say that word
Yeah.
properly. Yeah. So you're familiar with that.
I'm not really, but I've seen movies.
Okay. So you never partied with anybody that was on one of those?
No.
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I would love to be with an Amish kid that's gone crazy for just one night and see what he would get into as a young adult.
You can show him a few things.
Yeah, well, or not. I don't know. Maybe not.
You never
So, Wild Irish Rose. Oh,
Oh yeah, and I don't think I've ever had it again.
yeah. Well, you shouldn't have. Did you drink it all?
Oh, I'm sure I did.
No, you didn't, because it's a medical
Well, you're
fact that
right.
if you drink an entire bottle of Wild Irish Rose in your high school, you will die.
Yeah, well that might be the case. I'm sure I got as close to it as I could and
Yeah,
threw up.
right. There is nothing.
Great day.
There is nothing worse in my memory as well than a cheap wine
Fortified.
vomit. Yeah, a
Ugh.
cheap wine vomit is the worst. The worst. And you actually say the name of it while you're throwing Annie Green Springs as you're throwing it
Yeah.
up, and it's apple, strawberry. Oh yes.
Oh yeah,
A-
many
be-
flavors.
Beaver anus.
That's what the flavoring is in those. So,
So the gig
all right. Well,
with the Ohio Tavern News.
been there for about 17 years.
Wow.
And pretty much went out of there like right after college. I had a job here in town with an accounting firm, something like that.
Is that what you studied in college?
Marketing,
Marketing, accounting.
mass media, all that kind of
Anytime
stuff.
I talk to somebody who studied marketing or anything, they're very vague about. So were you vague when you got out of school as to
Pretty
what you were
much.
going to do?
Oh yeah, I had no
Yeah,
idea.
I had no idea.
No idea.
I just, I took business.
Yeah, that's exactly
Business,
right.
business.
It was something where I was like, I don't know what I want to be. My parents were both teachers. My brothers were going into
You didn't want to be a teacher.
teachers.
You
I was
didn't
like,
want to be a
"Nah,
teacher.
I don't really like
What'd
children.
your parents teach? You don't like children.
My mom was 6th grade, and then my dad was high school, and he
school.
was basketball coach.
coach.
So yeah,
Good coach.
he was. I
Yeah,
think
good teacher. What did he teach?
he did many different things, but generally like government and history and everything like
So
that.
he taught a real class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we actually I grew up in Northeast Ohio in Lorain County.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were like 12, 13, we moved to Mansfield because he was just hopping from he was at a small school there. He wanted to go to a big school. And when we got there, he was at the bigger school. And there he got probably the best teaching job of all time, where he was OWE, which he would send kids who were at risk of dropping out of school off to work at places, and throughout the day he would go check up on them, make sure they were going to work and everything like
wow.
that. So he enjoyed that. But yeah,
How long did he teach?
I would guess 30 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, and my mom did her 25 or whatever, and got out, and now they're both happily retired and travel. And that's how they do it.
God bless them, man.
Yeah.
I have nothing but immense respect for teachers all through my life. I think that they are probably one of the most underappreciated professions out there. You know, people who take the time and the effort to educate our kids and us. Sometimes they wind up with success stories, but that sometimes very futile effort. I mean, and then they come back. You know, after that summer break, they come back and do it again and again, and for 30 years and 25 years.
Yeah.
God bless your parents, man.
They did all right.
So you stumbled into the...
Yeah, basically in college, when I was there, I worked for the newspaper, the BG News in Bowling Green, and sold advertising there. So this company had an opening, and I looked at it. I'm like, you know what? That was fun in school. You know, got to go out and meet people at bars and stuff and talk to everybody.
This company, so Ohio Tavern News?
Ohio Tavern News, owned by a small family. They have like 2 or 3 newspapers.
How long had they been in existence before you took the gig?
Ohio Tavern News came into existence the week after Prohibition ended.
Wow.
So
this
going
is
on
this
75,
is
76, 80 years now. Yeah,
It's legit.
This is legit. This is a long time.
yeah.
Is it an actual paper? Is it a...
Yeah, it's a real life publication. Have a website, but we still do most of our business through the old-fashioned way, and I think that's just a kind of the bar owners in Ohio are kind of just the old school people. I mean, there's a new generation coming in where everything's done online and everything like that, but you still have your old timers who own bars on campus, who own bars all around the state, and VFW people who just want to get the pricing, want to see the new products, and do everything that way.
What was the first article you wrote for the Ohio Tavern?
I don't really write too much. I'm more on the marketing side, so I deal with all the in alcohol, everything's marketing. So it's all the stories you tell. But
all right. What was the first thing you marketed?
Well, actually, I was going to tell you the first story I wrote.
Okay.
So I have written stories. I'm just not. I would never call myself a writer because.
Why not?
Well, I don't know, because probably I'm not that good at it.
You wrote it. It's in the paper.
That's
it's published.
Okay.
You're a writer.
You can say that.
I will
That's
say
all right.
I will give you the credit.
Yeah. But, I think probably our pretty close to I think I started in April on the job, and by the time September rolled around, the guys from Brown Forman were going down to Woodford Reserve. They were doing a barrel pick with Jeff Ruby's restaurants down in Cincinnati. They said, hey, you want to come down here and cover this, take some pictures, maybe write a little story. So I actually got to sit in on one of the first personal barrel selections that Woodford Reserve ever did.
Wow.
And so, I got to sit around, take pictures. This was back when Woodford was, a small brand. And, just really looked around. I'm like, this gig is not bad. I'm going to keep doing this for as long as I can.
And
so,
you have for 17 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you do primarily now?
I deal with the brokers and distributors, deal with the state a bit. But it's more about, making a calendar that makes sense for the people who read the paper, which is the trade. It's your bar owners, it's your again, distributors, brokers, people like that. It's not really for you and me as a consumer, but
I would find probably a lot of stuff fascinating.
You probably
in
would. Just the pricing list alone. Which
You're not the average consumer.
Yeah.
Let's just put that out there.
Yes, you got a podcast and a show called Whiskey Business.
Hansberry, when you're right, God damn it, you're right. I am not your average consumer. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. And so, so we just deal with what's coming out, what's new, what's going to be on sale this week or this month, and everything like that. So
after 17 years, do you still love it? I mean,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's something that, when I first started it, I was pretty much a beer drinker and everything like that. I drank a little bit of Dewar's because I would, I loved the movie Swingers, so I'd go to places and be like, Dewar's on the rocks? Yeah, that's what I'll have, Dewar's on the rocks. So that was my drink of choice back then, but really it was just so I wouldn't drink too much and drive. So, I'd have like 2 over the course of 4 or 5 hours at the bar and be like, all right, I can go home now.
So Scotch was your first introduction to whiskey?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah. I'm positive I did wild turkey shots and jack shots and everything like that. But, not stuff.
But
that
as
you,
far as
yeah.
becoming the sophisticated man that you are today,
Sophisticato, yes.
yeah, it's the first actual liquor that you took time and actually would order at a bar. Doers, please.
Yes,
on the
exactly.
rocks.
Yeah,
No,
definitely.
on the rocks,
But now if I would to drink Doers, I wouldn't do it on the rocks. Don't drink Scotch on the rocks. That's I put with water.
With water.
Yeah. Irish I can do a little bit on the rocks, but very, very small. Like, smaller ice cube than this.
Right.
Bourbon, I can do it anyway.
Yeah.
I think...
well, there's certain bourbons that I think drink better neat, and there's certain ones that need a little bit of... We've said it before, that water is whiskey's friend sometimes as far as
Tamp
opening
it down
up
a bit. Yep.
Opening up some of the flavors and smells and tastes that the whiskey has.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was Chivas Regal, the first Scotch, and that's only because guy I worked for one summer said, you work hard all day, I'll buy your drinks at night as long as you drink what I drink, and he drank Chivas Regal.
Hey.
And okay.
You were classy.
Yeah.
Chivas
Regal.
That's a big timer.
No, I think was that price? Well, you would know. Price point. What is that? Is that higher?
Yeah.
Is that higher than Doers?
Yeah, definitely.
Really? Because I like Doers better than Chivas Regal now.
Yeah, but that was always the...
Do you go back to Scotch every once in a while?
Every now and then. A big fan of Glenmorangie. They have, just a whole line of different expressions, aged in bourbon barrels, aged
different
in wine barrels.
Expressions.
Yeah.
Ooh, explain that.
They'll have something that would be like Nectar d'Or. It's a Scotch. It's their single malt that's aged in a bourbon barrel. Then they also have, dropping names now, but like their different versions. Like they have an Astar, which is I think it's just aged in French oak. They'll have just things. Some will be aged in a brandy cask. So it's a little bit of differentiation to how they finish their bourbons, and or scotches, and that is actually what's driving the Scotch market right now. It's your 12 to 15-year-olds that are actually being finished in a different kind.
Do you think the Scotch market has taken a hit with the bourbon explosion?
Definitely.
in the last bunch of years?
Yeah.
And do you think it'll come full circle? Do you think it'll come back around again? Or is it they think this bourbon explosion is here to stay?
I think the bourbon explosion's here to stay. Basically what happened was, America really hiked up the quality on our whiskey probably about 20, 25 years ago. And it took the world a long time to catch up. Because they always thought of, Seagram 7 or,
I had a bottle of it.
Oh, no, it's a fine whiskey, but it's not, good.
We had it on the show because one of my guests was a high school friend of mine, and he doesn't drink much anymore. So I said, well, he goes, the only thing I remember drinking was 7 and 7s. So remember, we got a bottle of Seagram 7 and had
7 and 7. Did we mix it with 7
we did.
Up?
We
Yeah.
did. We
Yeah.
mixed it
We
with
had a
7
mixer.
Up. Hey, I do everything in my power to make my guests feel comfortable.
Yes, that's great.
If he wanted
Very
the
much
7-7, so forth and so on. But he put like that much Seagrams and like half a can of 7 Up.
You gotta do what the guest wants. But no, so about 20, 25 years ago, we really started kicking up great bourbons. And, one year in my favorites, Jack Daniels did their single barrel release back then. They also, Old Forester actually started producing Woodford Reserve. Jim Beam had Knob Creek. So it was all these things that did a little bit of step up. Wild Turkey released a Russell's Reserve. So it was like they saw that, okay, if we can put, age them a couple years longer, maybe get a higher proof on them a little bit, then we can make a little more money on them. And then all of a sudden.
And isn't it interesting? Because Jim Beam, just the good old-fashioned Jim Beam, not necessarily one of my favorites, but all of their other products, their higher end stuff. Some of that stuff is amazing. Same with Wild Turkey.
Yeah.
I remember Wild Turkey shots, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But you bump up to where their next level, and there's just some
it's fantastic.
amazing, fantastic,
Yeah.
products that they're putting out. Jack Daniels. You saw the Jack Daniels Shrine.
Oh, yeah.
Have
It's
you ever
beautiful.
taken a picture of that, Hansberry? we'll do it. We'll take a picture. It's we jokingly call it a shrine, but yeah, it's all there. It's all there, and there's about half a dozen bottles of single barrel reserve up there as well. So
Good
I ain't
stuff,
running
man.
out anytime
No,
soon.
you're not.
No. So you started with Scotch, and then you just started to. When did you just discover
With the bourbons.
the bourbons?
Basically, it was like that first year of work here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was nobody sent me over to a distillery in Scotland. You know, at the beginning. So we would go to Woodford, we would go to Jack Daniels, we would go to Wild Turkey, where I do things. I've actually been to the Town Branch Distillery. If you've had the Kentucky Bourbon Barrel beers, same company.
Same company, right?
Yeah, and actually at the beginning they were using, again, everything in whiskey is kind of sketchy as far as what they tell you. So from what I've heard was they were initially using Old Forester and Woodford barrels to age their beer, and then when their whiskey got up to age, then boom, they were able to use those.
Well, that's a nice segue. This one is 72% corn, 13% rye, and 15% malted barley. I mentioned earlier that they brought back bourbon distilling to Lexington for the first time since 1958. Town Branch is actually a little part of that area right there where the people used to go get their water back in the 19th century. And what do you think of this particular bourbon?
Oh, I love it. It's got a little bit of everything. It's got it's 80 proof, so it's real drinkable, really
Real
easy,
drinkable. I said that to the boys. I said, what are we drinking tonight? And I said, the guest bottle's only 80 proof, so nobody's going to get hurt tonight.
Yeah. But you know, you get your vanillas, you get a little bit of cocoa, a little bit of caramel, you know, and
It's got a sweet nose to it. It finishes a little
that
warm.
corn, it's got a lot of corn, so you can tell that sweetness.
A lot of sweetness. And it's in our favorite category of under $50 a bottle. It retails for, I think, $30-$35 a bottle.
Yep.
On average.
Exactly.
Depending on where you go. So yeah, the Town Branch gets the thumbs up.
Yeah,
For us on whiskey business in all categories.
It's got just a hint of a Scotch flavor too. You were talking about Scotches. It kind of reminds me a little bit.
Their owner of the company, well, the late Pierce Lyons, he was a man from either Ireland or Scotland, and he bought Alltech, which is the company that owns Town Branch.
Right.
They were a feed company for the horses down there, but his first love was whiskey and whiskey making, everything like that. So you can kind of tell that he's, you know, that malted barley is probably that Scotch taste you're getting.
Oaky, is that what you would call it? Oaky, or not necessarily? I don't know the terminology.
Yeah, it's got a nice oak on it.
And
Thanks. Yeah, feed me.
You got it, Greg.
Throw me a bone, baby.
and I love the bottle. Do you find yourself liking just the make of certain bottles?
Oh yeah.
I mean, this one I had lady that cleans my house actually makes lamps. And I gave her an empty bottle of Town Branch and said, "Make me a lamp out of this because it's
nice and sturdy.
thick, it's sturdy, it's stout, and you know, I'm enamored by certain bottles."
Oh yeah. Well, being on the marketing side of a lot of these whiskeys, you know, that's how you kind of have to differentiate yourself.
Is that how they do
know,
it?
It's like Pappy Van Winkle. If you've ever looked at that bottle, you can be like, okay, I don't know much about that. There's an old guy on it with a cigar, and you're like, oh, okay. But you know,
if you
there's a
look at
lot. But then when you know what it is, you're like, oh man, look at that. But like new companies, new products, I mean, you got to do something a little bit different. Because
What's interesting about this
else,
particular label is they actually have, you know, the map of where the
Lexington right there.
where the water would flow there in Town Branch, and I think that's kind of cool. But I get enamored by bottles. And you talk about labels. You look at the Van Winkle the 12. That just looks like somebody just slapped a sticker on it, and it doesn't look like anything fancy at all.
About 5 years ago, maybe a little longer, maybe 6 or 7, before the whole Van Winkle craze hit. But I mean, it was just starting. I had a bottle of the 15 at the house, and one day I get home, my wife's making pulled pork. She was like, "I use that fat Pappy whatever for this."
Best pulled pork ever.
And I was like,
We're going to eat this really slow.
but it's,
Really slow. Chew every fucking bite.
I think there was only, 2 inches left in the bottle, but, she used it up.
Oh, my God.
But at the same time, that's a great story.
I had the same experience. I used to have regular poker games here on a Monday night, and there were people that would come to play poker, and there were people who come just to hang out and drink my whiskey, which is fine. That's fine. But I mistakenly had left the 12-year out on the bar because I had it the night before, and I drank that sparingly because that's the only bottle I had.
Yeah.
And I come upstairs, and my friend Jamie Walker is like, "This one's pretty good," and I'm like, "Which one?" He goes, "That one," and I saw that it had gone from right about there to down to the middle. I'm like, "Give me that!" I hope you enjoyed it. And then I explained it to him. He goes, "Oh man, I'm sorry." He goes, "No, that's on me.
Yeah,
That's on me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you remember how well it was and how good it was because you're done."
Yes.
It's going back on. But to put
Hey, made
Almost
a great
the whole
pulled pork. No, it was at the end of it. There was a couple inches left, so
I'm saying. Okay, I misunderstood. I thought that she had poured so much, and there was only a couple inches left
there was
after she
only
made
a couple
the
inches
the
left.
pork. There were only a couple inches left in that, and she just tossed it in there.
So yeah, great pulled pork.
Can't imagine what a whole
Oh yeah,
a whole bottle of Van Winkle would taste like. Was it good?
Oh, it was great.
It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you slow roast pork and then smoke it and put some whiskey on it. It's gonna be good.
That is a great story, though.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about, since we're talking Van Winkle in general, and the subjects come up from time to time, and you being in this business, when the Van Winkle started to explode, and I've heard it from people who know the Van Winkle family, they don't particularly care for the fact that their whiskey gets exploited.
It does get exploited.
Like it is. They don't like that.
No. Well, if you look at the pricing that
and
they
why?
set. Well, because they're not making that money.
I understand with that. They're not making the money, but why that whiskey? Because you and I drink a lot of bourbons, and there are so many excellent bourbons that are just as good as Van Winkle.
Yeah. I think what happened was the show Justified.
Yep.
They had that on there all the time.
See, I told you, and I told you.
You brought that up at some point.
I brought it up when I love Justified.
Yeah.
And I saw them pour the Van Winkle, and I went, no!
Exactly.
No, because now people that love this show are going to want that whiskey.
And that's exactly what happened.
Same thing fucking would happen with Elmer T. Lee on Breaking Bad.
Yep.
On Breaking Bad. They had Elmer T. Lee on Breaking Bad. And I went, no! Yeah. Stop putting good whiskey on TV shows where the public's going, I got to get me some of that.
I know.
And what the fuck are you watching the whiskey bottle for anyway?
Well,
sorry,
all the shows we grew up with.
Get a little emotional.
The shows we grew up with didn't even put Coke on there. It had like Cake or a fake name. I'm like, why can't you do that with the bourbon?
And I understand it's product placement. I understand that. I understand in TV. In the last few decades, that became a huge thing, product placement. And apparently it's a huge thing in whiskey now, because now when I'm watching something on Netflix and they're drinking whiskey, there's
always a name brand on that.
I pause it and I just go, okay, I don't particularly like that one.
You can tell just by the shape of the bottle what you're drinking.
I can tell by the shape of the bottle. I go, okay, that one's okay. I'm okay with that. They can push that one.
Exactly. I'm like, they're going to make enough Jack Daniels. We're good. We're good. I know I can always get that.
But when the Van Winkle showed up on Justified, I about lost my shit.
Well, and plus, they have that 21 or 23-year-old. And, good luck finding that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how they get enough juice to fill up bottles, because being in Kentucky, with the way the water evaporates out of that barrel, I mean, I got to imagine every time they pour one of those barrels, it's got to be like 10 bottles worth.
Right.
So, it's just amazing. Yeah, and sad, because,
And then the people that get it.
Yeah.
All right, first of all, if it's in a bar, They charge an outrageous amount of money for a pour.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that have it and get it here in their homes, they don't drink it.
No.
And I understand. But by the same token, they don't... If you're going to get it and you're not going to prostitute it on the secondary market for whatever, then drink the son of a bitch. Enjoy it.
Dinoism,
collect art.
Collect art.
Not whiskey.
Collect art, drink whiskey.
Drink whiskey.
Yeah, that is that's one of the, he's affectionately termed as Dinoisms. But yeah, collect art, drink whiskey. I mean, that bottle of 12 I got up there right now is got about that much left on it.
I'm just waiting for, I got a bottle of same at home, and I'm like, well, when can I drink that?
And I got a bottle of 10, old Rip Van Winkle up there that, I'm just waiting for a special occasion. But it's gonna get open. I'm not gonna sell it. I'm not gonna sell it to somebody. I told you before we started the podcast that I gave away a bottle of Van Winkle rye, which I haven't even seen.
I haven't seen it since.
I gave it to TJ. Hansberry used to work with me at the radio station.
Oh, yeah.
He was a program director who had an appreciation for fine whiskeys and bourbons, and so I knew it was going to an excellent home. And I've had it since then with him, but it was a. I think the word you used earlier
magnanimous.
Was
You're magnanimous.
That's our
good for easy.
Have another drink and say it again.
Yeah, thanks. Magnanimous. Nope.
So 17 years. What does your wife do?
She's an engineer. Works for the city. So she basically is in charge of the water that we drink.
Oh, I was going to say, not the water
no.
in our whiskey. Well, maybe.
So the good thing was, the water that's in the Ohio and watershed.
Yeah.
So,
she's in charge of that.
Yeah. Well, she's in charge of some of that. So yeah, I don't know her official title, but
is she a whiskey drinker?
She loves Irish. She loves Scotch, bourbon. She's not much of a bourbon drinker.
Oh, more for you.
Yeah. Well. I can tell you why she loves Irish and she loves Scotch. I'll tell you why she loves Scotch first of all. About 4 years ago, we were in Scotland. We stayed at the Glenmorangie House. It's right at the distillery. It's a place where very few people have stayed. We were there on a night when they were having a company retreat. So we were there with the people who worked in London for the Moet Hennessy team, because that's who owns the brand. And they're like, "Yeah, you're staying in the Sting Room." We're like, "What's that?"
The Sting Room.
The Sting Room. That's where Sting stayed. We're like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And so when we were there, kind of grew to love Glenmorangie.
Yeah.
It was one of those nights where we were up late, at the house. They have every expression. They have their 25-year, they have their base, and you could have anything in between. And we were up late night in this old house in Scotland, or manor, I guess, just putting on the old carpet and trying to knock it into a cup.
Sure.
And it's so far away. And so, yeah, she kind of developed a taste for Scotch then. And then the next day, we went to Glenfiddich, and we did a tour there where we actually got to go into the barrel house.
Stay in the...
Well, no, we didn't stay there.
Was there a Sting Room in that one?
No, there was no Sting Room there. And luckily, she didn't come with the expectations that Sting brings when we stayed in that room, so we were good. So we went to...
This is the Bono room.
Okay, cool. I'll just bore you. Yes. But at Glenfiddich, they let us go into a barrel house, and they were like, "Okay, I'll say it how they said it. Here's a barrel of 21. If you like that, take your little thief, dip it in there, and we'll pour it in a bottle, seal it up, and send it back to you." We're like, "Well, that's good. That sounds good." So we tried that. I'm like, that's what I want. And they're like, "And here's a barrel of 18, aged in sherry casks." She got that one. She was like, "Well, I'll take this one." And we still have those bottles at home. So we got to bottle our own Scotch, seal them up in a.
Are they still sealed?
Mine's not. Hers, I don't know if hers is either.
I mean, I would understand
Yeah, I mean, those are special things, but
Those
I
are
mean, at the
special
same
things.
time,
I have gift bottles
yeah,
that are special, and I save just because they have sentimental value.
yeah.
I mean, Hansberry, you got me a bottle of Buffalo Trace,
I autographed it.
and you autographed
So-
it. And you know, I mean, Buffalo
sentimental.
Trace, we can get just about it. But the fact that you,
Yeah,
you know, wrote on
bought
it
it.
and wrote on it
And actually sprung for it.
Yeah, bought it. I'm not going to open up that bottle. Same thing with our Woodfords from the Manhattan competition.
Yeah.
You know, they have our faces on them.
That's right. They etched for if those people didn't hear that episode. Etched their faces in the bottle.
Yeah.
I'm not opening that one.
Well,
I'm going to keep that one for sentimental
I've
value.
judged that like 3 times now.
So you've opened
So
it.
my wife has made me open up like the earlier ones. They're like, "Come on, they're just collecting dust. You're never
Plus-
if we don't drink them."
And you don't look like this anymore.
Exactly. Well, Pete over there, he always picks the greatest pictures of me. It's normally I'm clean shaven and everything, but he'll get a picture of me where I have like a sweet mustache. And he'll be like, "That's what's going on the bottle," you know. And it's just something where it's like, this is not how I look, but I'm like, but I like how that looks.
Speaking of that competition, do you get asked a lot to be a judge? And because that was my first one, and I was so glad to have you there and Christine there, who's been on the podcast
Yep,
as well.
she was great.
You know, I was thrilled to be there, but you guys were pros. You'd been at it before.
Yeah, I've done a few over the years, so yeah, it's always a good time.
Yeah.
But you know, you were there. What you tried? We tried 20 drinks,
It was,
20 Manhattans.
Granted,
Granted, they were this big, but
you know, I'm kind of glad now that John is producing our YouTube channel. I'm really glad that he wasn't there for that one because when I listen back to that podcast, I get a little slurry,
We were a little loose.
slurry, and a little
Yeah.
sloppy.
yeah.
Towards the end of it,
For the listeners, it's the Manhattan Project.
it was the Manhattan Project
great.
podcast. Is
And,
what that one was? Yeah.
Max and a couple other people, the winner of the Manhattan tasting
Ben.
contest
Ben
from Curio, which is
no longer with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, Curio.
I know.
What a great bar that
It
was.
Yeah.
Well, you can find that in the archives, but go ahead.
Yes, you can.
Okay, and Curio was an amazing craft cocktail bar. So, what is your impression of the craft cocktail craze?
It certainly is a craze. I'm a guy who, when I make a old fashioned at home, I'll pour a bunch of bourbon into a glass, ice cube, and then maybe put a shake of bitters on it.
And you're done.
But yeah, I mean, I love what they do.
Yeah.
I'm not
No.
I'm not
I'm with you.
complex enough to go, you know what would work with this? Maybe a little citrus, maybe a little expressed orange, maybe a little expressed orange that is smoked. You know,
Yeah,
so, I mean, the way their minds work.
It's an art
amazing.
form.
Yeah.
But when we had Christine on, Basham was with us, and we talked about that. She made a very good point. It takes time to make those cocktails.
Definitely.
And when you're in a bar setting, it's about volume, and you know, so I don't know if that was its downfall, the fact that they don't push them out quick enough or had enough to. I don't know.
Could have been. I knew.
It's a shame that there wasn't enough volume.
Yeah.
To complement the
their
artistry.
history.
Yeah.
I also know that the pizza place beside it, I think they wanted to expand into that place because it's Harvest Pizzeria.
It's because we need another pizza joint in Columbus, Ohio.
No comments.
We have great pizza in Columbus.
Oh, yes, we
have
do.
great pizza in Columbus. We do. For a city in the Midwest, we have pretty damn good pie. But back to my original question, as far as I mentioned craze, and you kind of were jumping on that, like it's a craze. You think it'll worm its way out? And
No, I think you'll always have it at high-end restaurants and everything like that. But I don't know. I can't say that.
I'm not going to hold you to it.
No, I know.
And then because I'm not going to, because I appreciate, like I said, the artistry of it. But I'm like you when
Well, think about.
I'm pretty simple when it comes to a cocktail.
Yeah, on campus. What do you think the number one selling cocktail is?
I have no idea.
It would be either rum and Coke,
Jack and Coke.
or Jack and Coke,
Or Jack and Coke.
or
right.
Jack and Diet, or rum and Diet, you know, or
Rum and Diet,
a
yeah.
Cuba Libre, which is rum and Coke.
Rum and Coke.
So I mean, it's just boom, boom, boom. You got to get it out the
Right.
door, and you know that's why these brands like Jack and like Bacardi and everything, they're always going to be relevant. Captain and Coke, you know, kids love
Yeah.
that too.
When I,
Kids, the
Or
kids,
the,
the kids love that.
legal drinking age students.
when I went to Ireland, we visited Dublin and we went to this real fancy restaurant with the family, and I go, I'll have a Jameson and Coke, and the guy looked at me.
Oh, really? You
well,
actually said that?
Well, you know, I was maybe 19.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, a hippie college kid, and he wouldn't mix it for me.
God
so
bless
he gave me the drink of Jameson and then a little glass bottle of Coke, and he just
Okay.
kind of looked at
Yeah.
me and said,
If you want to
"There
drink
you
the
go,
Coke
buddy."
later.
yeah.
Yeah, one of their big drinks though is Jameson and ginger ale. So don't let them.
Okay,
Don't
all right.
let them.
Okay, so
Fool
he,
you
was
on
just, he
anything.
knew I was an American.
It may
I
have
do
just been a
enjoy
little
a
pretentious.
Jack and Ginger in the summertime.
Yeah?
That's what I like to call my casual cocktails. You know, when I'm not seriously drinking, I just want to just have a cocktail while I'm conversing with my
Yeah.
friends in the summertime. A Jack and Ginger is a good
Ginger ale's an underrated mixer sometimes. Yeah,
Ginger beer is fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah, and Canada Dry
There you
came
go.
out with a combination ginger ale lemonade that I started
Oh, that's
pouring.
gotta be
There you
fantastic.
go.
That I started pouring into the Jack because a friend of mine said, "Have you tried this yet?" And Deli, Deli, yeah. And I did, and I go, "Oh,
Not bad.
not bad at all for the casual cocktail."
Yes.
But when it comes down to the serious drinking, it's either neat or on the rocks.
Yeah. Well, you can get the Kentucky iced tea.
The Kentucky iced tea.
This is what Freddie master distiller Jim Beam, told me many years ago. Kentucky iced tea. Hot day, fill your glass up with ice, pour the bourbon in it. Kentucky iced tea. there's your cocktail.
There it is. That's
Just fill it with ice, though.
Just
fill it
fi-
with
fi-
ice.
fill it with
It's
ice.
got to be full
So,
of ice. And
yeah.
then boom, Kentucky
and
iced
then let
tea.
nature take its course.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's pretty funny stuff right there. Oh my gosh! So as we move on, I mean, 17 years. Do you have any other aspirations to do other things, or are you pretty?
I think I'm always looking for something. What is next?
Yeah, what is
obviously
next?
being in the publishing industry, it's rough out there, certainly. But my company has treated me so good over the years.
I would. Anytime you stay any place more than 10
yeah,
years, I mean,
exactly. Well, you just left.
I left after 24.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I actually got here. I think right when you.
When I started.
Yeah.
How old were you in 1994? Just to make me
I
feel.
guess I didn't get here then.
Just to make me
was a
feel
couple years
real
later.
old. How old were you in 1994?
Oh, I was-
Were you just born?
No. I was 20,
Were you 20? How old are you?
43.
Are you really? Good for you.
You're young 43, Max.
Yeah. He
My
looks the
wife.
same age as you, if not younger.
What?
Max.
What?
He looks the same age as you,
Yeah.
if not younger. And maybe it's because of your, I want to be in a
Scruffy
bluegrass
right now.
band beard that you got going on. But how old are you?
34.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. See,
Yeah,
dude,
I'm an old 34.
No.
yes.
I'll
Well,
take that.
when
I'll
you,
take that as a compliment.
I'll give you this. I've known you for a long time. When you shave, you go back to looking like
Age appropriate.
Age-
All right,
age-
okay,
age-
thanks.
But I think this goes back to telling you, I've been drinking bourbon and whiskey for the last 17 years, so boom,
The,
kind of
so-
keeps you nice and preserved, baby.
People have said that to me that you're pickled.
Yeah.
You're pickled and preserved. So, speaking of the next thing, what do you see on the horizon as far as our whiskeys or just our libations in general?
Well-
I mean, I saw that we're like gin was making a comeback
Yeah.
there for a while.
I think the classic things are coming back.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, gins are making a comeback. Obviously, good whiskeys are always going to be around. But what happened probably at the beginning of this decade was just an abomination to everything cocktail oriented. Everything was flavored. It basically
Vodka went crazy.
Yeah, flavored vodka went nuts, and companies decided to let's just run with that. Let's run, whipped cream flavor, which sold really well. But then they were like chocolate whip, orange whip, strawberry whip,
Right.
cake, chocolate cake.
My sister's a vodka drinker, and at Thanksgiving she had the vanilla cream vodka. And I just love this. It's like I'm not drinking at
You
all.
put that in a White Russian.
Yeah.
Good night.
Yeah. Forget about
well,
it.
the whipped cream, heck yeah.
Yeah.
But but that actually, what the bourbon craze has kind of done, it kind of knocked out all of those flavors that weren't natural. So because when you taste bourbon, you get vanilla, you get caramel, you get these flavors, and the cherry vodka and Coke, cherry Coke, that's fine. Lime Coke, that's great. Lime vodka and Coke, that's great.
When you get those
when you get
natural
those other
flavorings
ones.
that could very well be beaver-anus
Yes.
secretions.
And it goes back to the beginning.
And we come full circle.
And don't try those raspberry ones. I heard that at the beginning, that the raspberry flavoring may be natural flavors.
So, moving forward, what do you think?
Well, I think you're basically I think gin's going to make a comeback, but we've been saying that for a few years. Good tequilas are just exploding all over.
Ask George Clooney.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh my gosh, you made $1 billion
I
on
know.
a tequila that nobody
Crazy.
drinks.
Right. Amazing.
But good for him.
Yeah.
But your bourbons, I would guess that single malt scotches and your Irishes that kind of play around with age statements and everything, those are going to be continue to do good. I could see a lot of these craft cocktails that we were drinking,
Right.
we're using Aperol or Amaro. So those things that are not necessarily a liquor, but a liqueur, those things are actually going to grow. But I think it's more just natural. And I think to answer a question earlier about the craft cocktail craze, I think that will continue because these new things or these old things are going to be new again.
Yeah.
And so everything's time's a flat circle, man.
There's a book I have called I don't know where it's at, but the Savoy, and it's just a book of old cocktails from the 30s, and the Savoy.
Boom.
Oh, look at Hansberry. Look at that. The
like he's
Savoy
been to your
cocktail
library.
book.
I'm sitting right next to the home library.
Yeah, right here. And in this book is just all the classic cocktails from back in the day at the Savoy, which was and they're pretty awesome. So yeah, I would welcome that.
Oh yeah. Well, and the classic cocktails are ones that are generally not, 15 steps.
No.
There's a citrus, there's a spirit, and there's another part. It's basically you're just easy to make, taste great kind of thing. Another thing you'll see, and I think we are starting to see, is the localization of everything. In Ohio, there's now like 15 distilleries.
Right.
Maybe more.
How many do we have in Columbus, Ohio? As we
4 or
speak?
5 or 6, And I think those, people are always going to... I think one of the big problems, and this is kind of a tangent I'm going off on, with the craft beer craze,
Right.
the big companies didn't understand what it was all about. So Budweiser went out, or a large company went out and bought a lot of these smaller, local breweries. But what happened was when they bought these places, the people who were their core customers were like, oh, now it's Bud or whatever,
Yeah.
So they wouldn't do that anymore. And it, like in Columbus, you have, oh gosh, how many? 20? 30?
I've lost count. I mean, it seems like
breweries?
a new one. It seems like a new
but-
one springing up every week.
Oh yeah, but people love them because it's right around the corner from
Right.
them. They can go to the bar there. They can have their meal there.
They got the hotel that's opening down
Yeah.
in Canal
Brewdog
Winchester.
and C-Dub. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that localization will continue, and I think that's where the beer market's kind of going to go. It's when the giant conglomerates keep on buying small ones, the small ones are now part of the conglomerate, and then another small one will spring up where that was. So it's like it's going to be local.
So is it also going to be just a vicious circle?
It is.
Is that what's going to happen? The small ones are going to spring up, and eventually they're going to sell out to the big guy.
Could be. But a lot of them haven't. I mean, Sam Adams, Great Lakes.
Yeah. True.
Bells, they've
Good
all
point.
celebrated their 30th year anniversary
point.
this
Good
past
point.
year. So I mean,
And they stick to their guns.
they're the class of '88 is what they call themselves, because that's when
Nice.
they all started. And actually, I don't know if Sam Adams is then, but there's 5 of them that are countrywide.
I won't fact check you.
All right, cool. It's fake news. Fake news, sad. Sorry. But I think what you'll see with the local distilleries, and just coming back, is those will grow, and as they get older and older, their whiskey's going to get better and better.
Yeah, that's the
Like
beauty
if
of
you've
that.
had the Ohio Olorosa, it's great.
Yeah.
It's because they started probably 8-9 years ago, and now they're at a point where they can age it fully and then work
Right.
with it. The Watershed bourbon, it gets better every year, and that's what will happen. You'll see these small companies, and they'll be able to compete on a local thing.
Sure.
But I mean, you're still going to have your core Jack drinkers, your core
Right,
Beam, your
of
core
course.
Turkey, and all those people. So
time is in their favor.
yeah,
As far as the quality of their
if they
product.
can make it, and that's the
Yeah,
tough part.
yeah.
Can I interject? And I think I told you this. I went to Chicago last spring, and we were at this real fancy restaurant where it's like a fixed menu, and they served an old fashioned with Watershed.
Yeah.
And they were very, they're like, it's Watershed from Columbus, Ohio. They're very like, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got
Respectful.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was cool. And this was the one I told you they used beet juice.
Oh yeah.
So it was, talked about
Delicious.
Yeah, but so I guess it's
I
just
hate
to talk
beets.
about. It was good.
I've never understood
But
beets.
it's kind of funny. I go to Chicago and they're serving
Yeah.
Columbus bourbon. And
Well,
kinda
that's what
unique.
I was in Chicago last year at one of their large liquor stores, and I always buzz around
Binny's.
liquor stores. Binny's, yeah, I was at
Yeah.
Binny's, and boom, Watershed was there. I was like,
Yeah.
that's good, and that was the only Ohio brand I found there. But I was like,
But
that's
still,
pretty
the fact
cool.
that it's reaching
Yeah,
out.
it's like,
bourbon
good job,
barrel
guys.
gin.
Yeah,
Beets.
It was really good.
Who eats beets? Do you eat beets?
my wife loves beets.
Does she?
I eat beets all the time.
Make an old
because
fashioned with it.
because they
It's
keep
good.
growing in our garden.
So you have no choice.
I have no choice, but I loved them for like the first 3 years because I hadn't had beets in a long time. But now it's like 5th and 6th year, and I'm like,
They make your pee.
beets,
pink.
huh?
Yeah.
I just remember growing up seeing there'd always be a plastic container in the back of the refrigerator, and you opened it up, it was fucking beets.
Nobody likes that.
Which is not the way I particularly want to end this particular podcast, but what the fuck? Here we go.
Let's get on that beet rant, damn it.
Our
Big
guest
beets.
our guest bottle has been Town Branch, which we have pretty much drained this evening. It's not too often, Max, that we finish the whole bottle on a
Well, there's 4 of
podcast.
us.
There's been 4 of us before, so that is. I'm going to give you the credit on that.
All right,
The
I'll
fact-
take it.
Yeah, we love the Town Branch. It's definitely under the $50 mark if you want to pick up a good straight Kentucky bourbon. Max Eckenwiler has been our guest. Ohio Tavern News. If people want to follow you anywhere, can they do that?
Yeah, at Max Eckenwiler on Twitter.
On Twitter.
It's very easy.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll tweet it out.
Yeah.
It's just like it sounds. At Max Eckenwiler. After you get to EC, I'm sure it'll pop up.
It'll pop up.
Yeah.
It'll pop up. Well, thank you, man, so much for being with us.
Oh, thanks
Continued
for having me,
success with the Ohio Tavern News and keeping us abreast of what's going on. I think tonight's been extremely entertaining and also informative. Which for those people who listen to this podcast who actually want whiskey information, I think they got it tonight.
It was a podcast, not only with whiskey, but about whiskey.
About
How
whiskey.
about that?
Yeah. Every once in a while, that happens on whiskey business. But thank you, brother. I appreciate
All right.
it. I really do. I'm going to wrap things up like I always do. Whiskey Business is a Never the Luck production, produced by Greg Hansberry over here on this side, and you
you.
can't see him, but over on this side, on our YouTube channel, producer John Whitney, who's been doing an amazing job the last few weeks. Hansberry, do you have the information on the YouTube channel to tell people, or should we hand over the microphone to John Whitney
Yeah, I'll give it to John, but subscribe at YouTube here.
to tell us what to do?
Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis.
Yes, because
on
there are
YouTube.
other whiskey businesses
are.
out there.
Yep.
So we got to do the with Dino Tripodis.
Instagram at Whiskey Business Podcast.
Thank you.
And subscribe at iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Podcasts.
Stitcher.
We're growing. We're growing. We're
Tune in.
prospering. It's taken some time, but the word is getting out about
You got
whiskey
it.
business with yours truly, Dino Tripodis. And so, my friends, until the next bottle, see ya.